Hello there, vinyl community and YouTube. JorgenS here, and welcome to my balcony. And maybe not the most sunniest day today, but it's pretty warm and decent weather. So I thought it was a good idea to shoot a video from here. This is going to be a little special video. It's a celebration for a very special year. As everybody knows, my favorite years in pop history are 1984, 85, 86. Maybe most of all 1985. It's such a great year that was in the middle of two eras, in my opinion. It was the little end of the synthesizer era from 83, 84, and beginning of a new pop era that was during the late 80s. Therefore the songs of 1985 contained both great normal pop tunes combined with some synthesizers. It has so much great productions and melodies and so on. And 1985 was also the year when I had my breakthrough as a pop nerd. It was the year where I discovered pop music for real. Of course, I listened to music before that and got interested. But 1985 was the year when I really became a pop nerd for real. When I fell in love with pop music and started to listen. I literally lived by the radio, recording so much, and was so much in love with pop music. Therefore 1985 is the year when I was newly in love with pop music, and I wanted to, that is 30 years ago, so this, let's call it 30 years anniversary of my pop interest. So I have picked together a stack of albums and singles from that year that was containing songs that I listened to mostly. I didn't start collecting records until 1 year later, in 1986, but still it is a magic year for me. So when it comes to singles, all this to go through. So let's start it off with the hits of 1985. Also trying to avoid those albums that are my absolute favorites, because I've shown them so much, like Nick Kershav's The Riddle, Go West's debut album, Madonna's Material Girl, although Madonna will be here, don't worry, Adam, and so on, showing the albums that I've been showing multiple times during my time here at the VC. So it's, hopefully I will show some records that are very new to many of you. Starting off with my absolute favorite group, Depeche Mode, who in 1985 didn't release a studio album. They released a greatest hits album called The Singles 1981 to 85, and there were a couple of new tracks on that album that I really fell in love with. First of all, this one, Shake the Disease, who was my entrance to that group, the very first song that I liked with this group. And the follow-up single that came in the autumn, it's called The Heart. Awesome singles. Let's move on with a song that I discovered back in 1994. I haven't barely heard it back in 1985 when it was released. It was released in 1984, but here in Sweden it was a hit back in 1985, so I give that an exception. REO Speedwagon, Can't Fight This Feeling. This is such an awesome rock ballad that I really like. One of the most classic rock ballads. It's interesting how a song that I barely heard during the 80s still can be 80s to me even if I discovered it in the 90s. But still, this is really, really awesome 80s music. This is a classic, one of the first songs that I started to like when I became a pop nerd. Nolan Thomas. He's known by his real name today, if I'm not wrong. He is a fashion designer, if I'm not wrong, Marco Calfa. But back in the 80s, he had a career as Nolan Thomas. Or did he? We don't know whether he was the one who sang on this song or not, because what I heard, there also was a guy who was singing, doing the real singing, that this was a singback. I don't know, but it was a great song nonetheless. Really, really funky and great beat that I absolutely loved. A summer classic, Now When It's Summer. But one of the huge summer hits 30 years ago was from one of the best albums ever made. Scriptability, The Word Girl. I remember being this year during the month in families, spending my vacation in a house where there was a teenage girl who had a lot of cassettes from the radio hit chart tracks that I just had discovered. And as a newly in love with pop music, I couldn't wait to get my hands on those cassette tapes, take them and sneak them into my own room and listen them listen to them secretly, until this teenage girl caught me and gave me a yell and took her cassettes back. But I was so happy, and this was one of the songs that I heard on these tapes. So no, I didn't take any cassettes with me back when I returned to my regular home after the vacation was over. Autumn again, a little water damage leave, but still it's an awesome song. Simple Minds, Alive and Kicking, really relaxing, from an amazing album that came out this year, Once Upon a Time. Gary Moore, one of the best rock ballads ever made, Empty Rooms. Also on the B-side, another marvelous song, Out of My System. And if you're interested, here on the back we have his touring schedule during September in 1985 in United Kingdom. More from the autumn, Kool and the Gang and Cherish. Another one of the best soul ballads ever made. Really relaxed and really romantic. I really love this song. Here is another great one from Australia. Classic one, Flash in the Pan, Midnight Man. Or as I usually sometimes call it, the table tennis song, because it sounds like they're playing table tennis in the background in this melody. From a great album, Early Morning Wake Up Call. Highly recommended. Of course, Level 42, Something About You. A song that I wasn't too interested in back when it came, but I discovered it later on, not too many years later. We'll go in later on to European music, not Swedish music. I'm not going to show any Swedish music. Swedish music back in 1985 was very underestimated, in my opinion. It was released a lot of great albums that today is sadly forgotten, but on the hit charts there were very, very little Swedish music, so I feel like I haven't that much to show. But in Europe there were a lot of great music, such as this amazing French band that I like a lot, And the Shin from France, with this hit song Canary Bay, another song that I listened so much on during my first month as a pop nerd, because I felt it was so awesome produced, even though I didn't understand one word of the song. Still don't. My French isn't all that good. And Adam, of course, having some Madonna. I'm not going to show Like a Virgin album because I show that so much, but that doesn't stop me from showing some of her huge large singles that she released. I think she released 7 singles during 1 year. Not many artists can do that, and I don't think no artist does that today. It was a year of the 80s when the more singles you sold, the bigger star you were. Madonna, we're having Dress You Up. We're having Naturally, Material Girl. We're having from the Vision Quest soundtrack, Crazy for You. An awesome ballad. I really, really like this album. And we have, also from the Vision Quest, Gambler. Great song produced by Jelly Bean. Sadly forgotten song, in my opinion. Coming to the European music that I talked about, I liked very much during the 80s the Eurodisco that was at the time, disco music with a lot of synthesizers from Germany, from Holland, from Italy, and so on. All of these are from 3 following are awesome Eurodisco tracks. Here's a song that I loved so much when it came. Today I'm a little bit tired of it because I listen to it way too much, but it still is nostalgia to me. Falco with Rock Me Amadeus. A song that I recorded over and over again from radio during the autumn 1985. From Germany, Falco is from Austria. From Germany, Fancy, Ladyo. Imagine that this guy is close to soon celebrating his 70th birthday soon. Amazing. Fancy, great artist, sadly forgotten. Here we have my favorite girl, Sandra, and I'll Never Be Maria Magdalena. This one is found at the thrift store, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see this. I think that this is Sandra's genuine signature. So it's fun to find a signed album release in a thrift store. Albums from 1985, containing also some of the songs that I listened most to in 1985. Heart, and their self-titled album, an album that was their comeback, you might say, with songs like What About Love and Never, which also during the later years was followed by These Dreams, one of the best, also another one of the best rock ballads ever made. Really great rock album, this one. Thompson Twins, Here's to Future Days. A lot of these albums, when back in 1985, I was really wanting to have. I looked in these catalogs that we got home with the records and without LPs and cassettes that you could order from by mail. I looked at them and wanted to have them, and looked at the titles where it said which songs that was included on this album to see if my favorite song was there. And this was one of the albums I wanted to have back in the days. And you're having here great songs like Don't Mess with Dr. Dream, so awesome, great song. It's an anti-drug song. Lay Your Hands on Me, you're having King for a Day. The only thing I really don't understand is why they insisted on doing Beatles song Revolution. Not a bad song, but it's not fitting on this album. Believe it or not, I'm showing a heavy metal album. Everybody knows that I'm no heavy metal fan, with exception from Gary Moore and Deep Purple. But this album, I remember hearing a single from this album in the radio, and I really liked it. And I I bought this album and still like this album very much. Gotta like this cover. Rat with Invasion of Your Privacy. And the song that I heard during the summer actually was Lay It Down. And I really liked it from the start when I heard it, so I had to get the album. Here we have an album that I discovered in modern times, but it's really one of the most classic albums ever made. Really awesome, laid back. Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, a huge classic. The only song that I really feel is not my favorite is Walk of Life. It's a little cheesy for me, too cheesy for me. But So Far Away, Money for Nothing, title track, Brothers in Arms, so awesome song with awesome guitar playing by Mark Knopfler. This is really an awesome one. Of course, I love Tears for Fears, and wanting to have their album Songs from the Big Chair. Remember during the autumn how much I love their single Head Over Heels. Still think that is I like Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Shout, but I think Head Over Heels is maybe one of my absolute favorites from this album. Ultravox didn't have a big year in 1985. I think they had a little break. Didn't stop Mitch Ure from being creative with the music, and released an awesome album, The Gift, that I discovered back in the more modern days. But I got curious of the single If I Was back at the time. It's a really great song. This is really an album that shows how great singer Mitch Ure really is, or was. He has lost his voice a little bit today, but really awesome singer. Here's an album that I wanted to have so much when I was a kid, back in 1995. Paul Young, The Secret of Association, consisting some of the best songs that he ever made, like Every Time You Go Away, you have Everything Must Change, Tomb of Memories. Such a forgotten single. Really awesome song, Tomb of Memories, and a song that has so much Motown feeling in it. There's so much old 60s and 70s soul in it, combined with synthesizers. It's really great mix between old and new. And an album with a band that I also liked very much back in the days. I heard their single P Machinery and I was so much in love with that song. I still think it's one of the best songs that have ever been made. And the album is so fantastic. Propaganda, A Secret Wish, a synthesizer classic, consisting also their other hit single this year, Jewel, and another fantastic Marvel song, Dr. Mabuse. Check that video out, made by Anton Corbijn, the household photographer of Depeche Mode. Such a marvelous album. And I'm going to finish this 1985 celebration by showing the single that was the most selling single in Sweden back in 1985. It was number one this year on the radio hit chart tracks, the biggest hit there, and this is also a song that I still today is a fantastic rock ballad that I love very much. Bryan Adams' Heaven, the most selling single in Sweden back in 1985. So with that, I hope that you had a great time celebrating the 30th year anniversary of my breakthrough as a pop nerd. Celebrating the year of 1985, and I hope that was some nostalgia, and maybe you discovered some new artists that you wanted to discover, hopefully. So until next time, I hope that you have a very nice week and nice Sunday, no matter where you are, and so long.